Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderEd, Blender HD, if you want to follow me on Twitter. And it's Wednesday, March 8th. And as always on this show, we take your questions. I take your questions. Maybe the chat takes some of your questions. Who knows? In the YouTube chat. Wataz is here. Suki Singh is here. The early birds. The two early birds usually. Dick Defix. Devin's here all week. You can say hi to Devin. He's taking over for Steve this week. Steve must be on vacation or something. Or dealing with his kids or whatever. Right? It must be a pain in the ass to get up this or he's already up way early, having to deal with that and then having to deal with me. So we'll be here in the morning. Get your questions in. Remember, this show is guided by you. You have questions, I have answers. Anything about DFS, strategy, projections, leverage, correlation, lineup construction, combinatorics, anything you want. Just like the theory of DFS, right? There's all these topics. We could go here, click through, right? Here, all these topics. Salary adjusted value, expected value, comparing value to ownership, measuring correlation, variance control, all the fancy words. All the fancy words explained. If you want a structured way of learning, if you want to just go and have one big reference guide, I would definitely have you get the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. How to think like a professional DFS player. It's 15 hours. Theoryofdfs.com. Or if you already are well versed on the game theory concepts of DFS, you go to the Advanced Players course, 6 hours of audio and the custom Excel tools. You just go there, theoryofdfs.com. It'll cover everything. But if you got questions, this is what the show is for. The show is all geared around you. So submit your questions at theoryofdfs.com. I answer them all eventually. Sometimes I let some questions get piled up and see what topics multiple people are having issues or clarifications or need help on. So one of the things that I've gotten asked recently is about aggregating projections. Aggregate. What does the word aggregate mean? Right? It means add them all up. Right? Not necessarily add them all up, meaning we're going to add, Jason Tatum's 53-point projection to some another projection source, 51, and then it's 104. It's like, no, aggregate is more like averaging it out or weighting it out in some fashion where you're combining the projections of multiple sources. Okay, why would you want to do this? Okay, why would you want to do this? You can sign up for RotoGrinders. You sign up for RotoGrinders Premium, right? You get NBA Premium package, or you get the Combo Premium, which the best value, you get all the sports, right? You'll get our projections. You'll get our up to the minute, right? 10:42 a.m. projections right now, right? You get our ownership projections as well. You get everything. You get all the numbers in Lineup HQ. You get the floor, the ceiling, all these figures, right? Which is pretty much kind of all you need in order to build plus EV lineups in DFS. But there are other sources out there. You could make your own projections if you want, and you could aggregate them together. You could average them out in some way. If you want to take into account possibly other opinions, other models. Now in NBA DFS, the difference between models around the industry is not much different. How the actual model converts usage rates and rebound rates and minutes played and all that type of stuff into what the floor and ceiling, the range of outcomes, that distribution curve. There's not much difference between them. The main difference is pretty much the minutes, right? That's why we have a projections team at RotoGrinders. An entire NBA projections team. They talk all day in Slack about what the rotations are going to be, right? Because you may look and you see yesterday, so-and-so played 28 minutes. Oh, does that mean he's going to play 28 minutes today? Well, what happens if second half, some guy got into foul trouble 2 minutes in and the game blew out? The guy that normally would play 18 minutes played 28 minutes, but it was because of that context. Or maybe it is a new rotation. Maybe they are matching up differently with certain teams. That's why we have a projections team that goes in, and that's where we get the minutes from. That's where we get the usage rates from. So a lot of times when you're relying on projections, you're putting your trust into a projections team that is giving those inputs. Right? Cardi with the blitz, right? Well, so-and-so wide receiver, we're projecting to have a target share of 22%. Well, where does that number come from? Well, that number comes from, number one, some algorithmic mean of, weighing past results and also manual adjustments. So, like Cardi may have some receiver as 22% target share. Some other site that maybe you want to look at that ain't half bad either has 26% target share. So obviously, 26% target share will mean that projection should be higher, right? They have a higher target share. Same thing as if we have here that, Josh Giddey, 33 minutes. And you look at another projection source and they have 34 minutes. Well, most likely the 34 minutes is going to be, we could increase this by 1 minute, right? Their projection goes up by a little bit, right? So you could even change the minutes on the NBA projections yourself if you want. The model should account for it, right? If you Isaiah Joe, 29 minutes. Now I think only 27 minutes. The projection would go down from 26.35 to 24.53. The grand scheme of things, 1.8 points of projection is not that great, but it may make the difference between you playing X lineup versus you playing Y lineup, or you having more of Isaiah Joe or less of Isaiah Joe. Maybe another projection source has him at 31 minutes. It means his projection would be 28.16 or around there. It means you're more likely to get even more of him. Now you're going to have him in more lineups, more likely to play him in a lineup. So the main difference between projection sources, typically in basketball, are like minutes, doling out the minutes. And a lot of times it's one or 2 minutes here and there. A lot of times. Sometimes there are outliers. Sometimes, we're not sure about a certain rotation. Highly variant. This guy could play anywhere from 24 to 30 minutes. If you think it's on the 24 side, well, maybe you'd set it at 24 minutes. Maybe you think it's more toward the 30 side. Or maybe you just trust the teams that make these projections. So if you just wanted to use the RotoGrinders projections, and any source that you use for projections is still better than you doing nothing. Okay? We'll talk about projection accuracy tomorrow. Because that's another question I get often. Who has the most accurate projections? The main question to ask there is, are those projections more accurate than you doing them yourself? Do you have any way of converting names into numbers? No? Well, then RotoGrinders is fine, right? If there's there's slightly better projections, it's not going to gain you that much, typically, right? So the main difference between projection sources, like in basketball, would primarily be minutes. The models in and of itself aren't going to change that. There's no model that's like, oh, well, we handle block rate this way and predict X. It's like, it's not going to matter that much. So no matter what source that you get your NBA projections, as far as running it through an actual model, some type of Monte Carlo simulation, getting a range of outcomes between the floor and the ceiling, is not going to be much different. The main difference is going to be on the minutes. But if you want to smooth that out, right? If you want to make sure that, maybe you're not sitting in outlier situations, you want to average it out, you could aggregate those projections. Now, it used to be you would have to aggregate it yourself in like Excel, right? You download, you see this download button, you download all these projections from RotoGrinders, and then you download the projections from insert wherever you get another source of projections. Then you have to go in Excel and you'd have to aggregate it yourself, right? You'd have to say, oh, this guy's projection is 50. This guy's projection is 52. So if I weight them equally, the average would be 51, right? You could do the same with the ownership as well, right? Oh, this source has a guy at 18% owned, and this source has him at 22% owned. So the aggregate, if weighted equally, would be 20%, right? The average. Normally, you'd have to do that in Excel, and some people don't like using Excel, or it takes a little extra time. Unless you're going to set up some macros, you can do it a little bit quicker. Well, in Lineup HQ, you have the ability. We've always had the ability to upload your own projections, right? And in the past year or so, we've had the ability in Lineup HQ to aggregate projections yourself, that you don't have to deal with Excel. All you would have to do is download the projections from whatever source, or if you make your own or whatever. And as long as you match up the proper columns, like the names are the same, like the name column should be name, the median projection should be FPTS, and the projected ownership should be PROJ, PROJ _OWN. Right. So, I mean, I'm not going to share the screen for this, but if you looked in Excel, like our spreadsheet, our column naming is that, and it'll even show you, right? It'll even give you, right, little instructions, players for the slate only template, even templates if you need it, but you pretty much don't need to, right? So basically, all you need is the name column, the FPTS column, and the PROJ _owned projected ownership column, right? You could have the floor column, the ceiling column. You could have all that if you want. You don't need the minutes. You don't need anything else in order to aggregate. So here we have, the NBA premium projections, right? That's the only source that's in here. But I've taken the liberty of downloading the projections from another place, right? Another source, right? And here's their projections, right? My cost channel, you can name it whatever you want. I can name it, let's come up with a funky name. It's the Roto Ball exclusive club, like some type of like lame like DFS site. The Roto Ball exclusive the exclusive club elite, something like that. Something like, oh, that's where I'm getting my basketball projections or something. I don't know, just something, right? We'll call it that, right? And these are the projections, right? So I'm going to upload, right? Now what it's going to do, our system automatically name matches, because a lot of times different projection sources will have slightly different name, like an uppercase versus lowercase, apostrophes on names, juniors without the period at the end. So our system will go through and then highlight any players where maybe that's not the right person, right? And it'll suggest who it should be. Most of the time, everything will be fine. So, like, here's DeAndre Ayton, right? In our system, DeAndre Ayton is with a lowercase a, not an uppercase a, but with the projections that we're importing as an uppercase a. So essentially, it's saying, like, we're matching this to DeAndre Ayton. Are you sure? And obviously, we're sure. It's like, well, it could be DeAndre Jordan, but it's not. And if you wanted to skip that, you could just click there and skip, and it won't import that projection at all. But since we are matching it to DeAndre Ayton, we'll just press submit, and there we go. We got the Rotoball exclusive club elite projections, right? Whatever fake site used for fantasy points. We also have their ownership, right? So we'll get the ownership as well, which is the players' names and the projected ownership column. You could have that in the same file also. It just so happens that Rotoball exclusive club elite doesn't contain them in the same CSV. So we're going to go to Rotoball exclusive club elite. Really long name. I mean, typically they come up with weird names. Club elite ownership, right? We can call it whatever we want, right? We get here Marcus Morris Sr. Okay, now this is the same person. We're good, right? Everything else is fine. So now we have here, right? So which means now we could go into the columns, right here, and sort, and we've used that source. Like if I wanted to use Rotoball Club exclusive elite whatever projections, like there, look, it's switched, right? Here's their ownership, right? It switches. right? So I can use these drop downs, go back and forth, use whichever ones I want, right? But I could also aggregate. So you see here, no aggregate projections. If you go to this weights column, so here are all of your sources. Now you go to the weights column. And you could create an aggregate set with whatever weight that you'd like. So if you were just doing a pure average, right? You do an ownership weight. You could do a non-ownership weight differently than projection weight. So let's say we want to just do it completely up the middle. Pure aggregate, pure average. So ownership weight on our RotoGrinders projections, 50. And on ownership on the RotoBall exclusive club elites ownership, right? And we do the same thing for the projections, right? 50 and 50. Right? And we can call it whatever we want. We could go, and we can name it. It's my aggregate projection. That's the default name, my aggregate projections. So I say projection set. It'll aggregate, and there you go. Right? It'll show up as one of the columns now. One of the selectors, my aggregate projections. Right? So there you go. Switch it there. Right? Whatever that aggregate is, whatever the weight you put on it, there you go. Fantasy points, projected ownership. If you wanted to weight it differently, right? If I want to do this, and I'll go, okay, I want to weight RotoGrinders projections more, right? Or maybe I think the ownership of RotoBall exclusive club elites is not very good, right? So I'm gonna keep RotoGrinders ownership, but I'm going to weigh. But I think RotoBall exclusive club elites projections maybe a little bit. I like theirs more, right? Right. So I'm going to do 75%, 25%, right? You can do whatever you want as long as it adds up to 100, right? So you can make these. I want to keep the ownership the way it is, or I want to do it 90-10, right? I'll give it a little bit, right? You can do that. I mean, whatever you want to do, right? And you can make this set of aggregate projections, right? So you got another one used for both, right? You can click here, and then you get those, right? It averages out in a different way, different weights, right? And then use them the way it is. You can switch between them, anything you want. So it automatically aggregates. You could have multiple, right? So if we get rid of, let's say this one, like you could have multiple, like you could download projections. Let's say you have, there are other places, right? Competitors that have projections. You could download from 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 44 different sources or whatever if you want. And then instead of going in Excel, you could use Lineup HQ and just aggregate whichever way you want together in here. During baseball season, right? RotoGrinders has projections, but Cardi has the bat projections, and other places have projections also. If you want to I'm just going to assemble projections from 5 different places and then average it all out. You could do that. And you could do it right in Lineup HQ. Did you see what I did here? There's no technical marvels in order to do this. The only thing you'll need to know how to do in Excel is rename a column. That's it. That's all you need to do, right? I could literally even show you that, right? I don't even know if I have to. So, if you download projections right here, right? Right, you could download these projections, right? I've shown this before. Let me show just to show how easy it is. So let me share my other screen. So a lot of times the questions are, the concerns about the tools and theory of DFS. And when I say Excel, it's like, I don't use Excel much. I'm not good in Excel. It's like you don't need. You don't need to know much, right? So I downloaded our projections, our RG projections here, right? So you can see them right here, right? So player ID. Look at these headers. Right, name up over here. This is what another projection source file. This is what a projection source file would look like. Right, something like this. So you see this FPTS column and some other projections. Like let's say I take let's see. I take where we got, let's see. Projections from here. Right. So here's another projection source. Right? They have a different naming convention. Let's right. So look, oh, it doesn't even have all the columns. Well, you don't need all the columns. So you see name, FPTS, proj own. Like if this was called ownership in this file. Right up here. And this was called like DK points. Right. I think this originally was player. Right. I don't even know if you can even see it on the screen. It's so small. I don't even know if I could zoom in. Yeah, I could zoom in. There you go. There we go. Really zoom in. So I mean, you'll get a file that looks like this, and it's like all you have to do is go in and go, I'm going to change player to name. I'm going to change DK points to FPTS. And I'm going to change ownership to proj _ ownership. And you save the file, and you're good. That's it. That's all the Excel work you need. That's all. That's it. It's literally all you need to do. Right? Can you import the minutes and stuff like? Yeah, you can. The value, the ceiling. Right? If you take a look at our file, right? Ceiling is CEIL. Floor is floor. Right? We got what else in here? We got salary. We got, minutes. Is there minutes? I'm not sure if we could import. Oh, there you go. Minutes. There you go. Minutes right there. So I could go. Where's the other window? There we go. So I could even go here. Like minutes is there, right? Ceiling, I could even change to seal. Right? Like that. There's no floor in this file. Right? Whatever you have, you can match up to whatever you want. The main things that you're looking for is obviously FPTS and projected ownership. And you don't even need I don't even need the ownership. Okay. Or maybe you don't even need the fantasy, but you're just like, no, I'm just going there to get the ownership. Okay. So just use that column. That's it. Player name, right? Name, FPTS, projected ownership. That's it. That's all the Excel work you need. So many people are concerned about, like, I've never really used Excel much before. Like, this is all you need. I mean, like, really. For pretty much all the tools in theory of DFS, like, this is as much as you need to know. It's cutting and pasting and renaming columns. Okay, right? Like even in the Excel tools, most of the time it's like, oh, you cut and paste this and you paste it somewhere else, and that's it. And you press a button. That's labeled for you. That's it. That's it. That's all you need to do. Now in Excel to aggregate, you're gonna have to match up now. Now you have to do VLOOKUPs and match up player names and whatever, and make the aggregate or line them up properly. But in Lineup HQ, we do that for you. We do that for you. So where am I going here? Window. Right. So all you have to do is click that button, click the upload aggregate button, right? And there you go. You could use the RotoBall exclusive Club Elite all you want. You don't even have to use the RotoGrinders projections at all if you don't want to. I don't see why you wouldn't. But let's say you could even make it. You could even make it that you're using RotoGrinders projections and your own edits to it. Like, let's say it's like, okay, I'm going to go through and I'm going to change some things. And it's like, well, I don't want to rely completely on me. And then you aggregate your changes in ownership and minutes or anything with the RotoGrinders projections as well. You could do that if you want. You could download the RotoGrinders projections, change them in Excel, and then re-upload them and call them whatever you want. The super duper your own projections.csv or whatever you want. Just this feature is very, very, very useful to make it very easy to upload, download, aggregate, weight different projection sources. Just realize, I mean, the caveat with aggregating projection sources, make sure you're aggregating projections that are updated similarly. Okay? especially in basketball, right? Like in for instance, I don't know if there's much going on this NBA slate. Like I said, I'm not playing NBA. But like Reggie Bullock is questionable. Okay, does that matter? I don't know. But Reggie Bullock is questionable. It's quite possible that the source file from wherever you're getting the other set of projections has Reggie Bullock is out. So basically, all the Dallas projections are as if Reggie Bullock is out. Yet our RotoGrinders projections have Reggie Bullock as in and playing 33 minutes. So it's quite possible that you look at the Dallas projections from somewhere else, and they have them. They're projecting him in as out, which means obviously a lot of the other Dallas Maverick players are going to have better projections, while our projections on the Dallas Mavericks are going to be lower. Right? Imagine Giannis. We're listing Giannis as out, and other places just listing Giannis as questionable and in the projections. Well, that's going to make a big difference on Drew Holiday's projection, right? So make sure when you're aggregating, when you're, moving around projections, that, you're at least aggregating similarly updated projections. Baseball, right? Baseball doesn't matter as much, but baseball sometimes, you don't, we just got the Dodgers lineup in, right? At 6:54. And it's like, instead of Will Smith at catcher, it's Austin Barnes. And then you're like, okay, let me aggregate all these projections together. And you download projections from somewhere else, and they still have Will Smith in the lineup and not Austin Barnes. We have Will Smith in the lineup, and we don't. We have Austin Barnes in the lineup. Yet you're going to aggregate 50%, and Austin Barnes, his projection is going to be very low, right? Because we'll have his projection as 6, and the other place will have a projection as 0, and it'll be 3. Right, because they have Will Smith in the lineup and not Austin Barnes, right? So when you are aggregating, make sure that they're similarly updated times. If it matters. I mean, if Peyton Pritchard's 8 minutes are not accounted for somewhere, I'm not sure if that's going to matter that much. I'm not sure if you're playing him regardless if it was 8 minutes or 10 minutes or 4 minutes or whatever. But especially in basketball, right? Because we see all the time with, this guy's in, this guy's out, 5:30, injury report, 14 people in, 17 people out. And it's like, I downloaded these projections from 7 hours ago. Like, they don't matter anymore. Hopefully you're not aggregating with those projections. You're not using those to do so. And that's why it's used. That's why Lineup HQ, this is what this is literally what I do. I used to do it in Excel. I don't anymore because matching up the names is a pain in the ass in Excel. So this is literally what I use. People question me sometimes. I get some trolls every once in a while. Oh, you're on the show showing all the stuff that what's the stuff that you really do? You're not going to show us your secret sauce. It's like, no, that this is what I do. This is what I do. It is what I do. It's literally what I do. I'll have a bunch of different projections here. I will aggregate from around. Sometimes I use them, sometimes I don't. A lot of times it doesn't matter. A lot of times the difference between your lineups isn't going to matter that much. Projection models in 2023 around the industry are pretty damn good. They're all good. They're all good. They're better than what you can do, right? I prefer, for NBA, I would prefer the RotoGrinders projections. For baseball, the Cardi, the bat projections. That's typically what I use. I use for Prize Picks and Underdog. Like, dude, once that starts up later at the end of the month, I'll be up at 1 a.m. waiting for the Prize Picks board to go up to slam the pick'em plays. Right? The more thans and the less thans, right? I got to slam those. You can't wait till the morning. A lot of times it'll move. The projection will move on Prize Picks. That's what they're called on Prize Picks, projections. Okay, so does anyone in the YouTube chat have any questions about just simply uploading, aggregating projections? I mean, some of these shows are just about learning how to use the tools better, right? If you have questions about Lineup HQ, I don't know if there's any other than like maybe David Lawrence, maybe behind the scenes or something. Maybe Jamino, even Jamino. Like if did, I may be the most experienced person with this tool. Maybe Brit's up there probably. Cheese is up there, I guess. But I mean, I've been using Lineup HQ literally since it came out. Before I was even a host here at RotoGrinders, I was literally a subscriber. When people ask about eating your own dog food, yes, I use RotoGrinders stuff. That's what I've been using since 2015. I didn't sign up to RotoGrinders in 2016 because I was only playing soccer. But 2016, when I dabbled a little bit in baseball and PGA, I was a RotoGrinders premium member. I was people, dude. You could go in the Discord. There's still people in Discord that remember me from just being a normal person in Discord. I was just a normal schmuck talking to people without a fancy little avatar or color coded or whatever. No, it was me and Riddles but Danny Donahue. I don't know if he's in his chat anymore. Right, there's a whole bunch of old schoolers. Rupster, old school people in the RotoGrinders Discord back in the day. So I use this stuff. So that's why I'm showing. That's the purpose of this show. I'm showing you literally exactly what I do and answering anything you want. S. Wolf Dab says, I'm so glad baseball is back. NBA has been a nightmare. Well, it's not back yet. We still got, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks? MLB is definitely less stressful, less work. But the variance is still there. It's still, you're not getting away. DFS is still riddled with variance. So it can still be a nightmare. You can still go weeks without winning. Jay Willie says this is helpful because I've been trying to learn the Excel for DFS. You don't have to know that much. It's 2023. Sites like RotoGrinders, we have tools that do most of this stuff for you. As long as you know how to rename some columns or something. I mean, and cut and paste and stuff. You don't have to do much in Excel. And the stuff that you would even consider doing in Excel, we have as part of the theory of DFS for advanced players. Right? James's tools is stuff that that I did. I hacked together in Excel that didn't do very well, such as lineup simulators, portfolio trimmers, portfolio correlation matrix, dupe checkers, contest reviewers, stuff like that. Like, dude, you could just run. You could load these up in Excel, cut and paste lineups and projections, and there's a couple little buttons that you could press, and you're good. You don't have to learn. You don't have to learn fancy stuff in Excel at all. It's not as daunting. It's not as daunting as it looks. King of all trades says this is not science, guys. Use your tools and networking to excel. Literally. Okay. Defix says, what's a good way to backtest projection sets to determine the relative accuracy of each? Good thing you asked that. Good thing you asked that. We'll be talking about that tomorrow. Okay, about projection accuracy. I'm not sure you even have to worry about it, but people talk about it. I get that question often. What are the most accurate projections? Which place, right? Because there are other places outside of RotoGrinders. You have to admit that. But what places? Who has the best NBA projections? Who has the best baseball projections? What's the difference between Cardi's bat projections and the RG baseball projections? Like questions like that. The number one thing, I before anything else, what are you using currently? It's like I'm using no projections. It's like then any of them are better than none. Any of them are better because they're all good. They're all good. Okay? Projections are table stakes. You must have them. You must have some reasonably decent something. Are the lineups that you build and the choices that you make going to be dramatically different depending on which projection set you have? No, they won't be. But you have to have some way of converting player names into numbers. You have to have some way of doing that. Do it yourself. Well, I don't know how to do that myself. Well, you better get some projections. Well, which out of these 10 different places I could Rotoball exclusive club elites project, like, they're probably fine. Rotoball exclusive club elite, they're better than nothing. Do they update in time? I mean, if it's the type of thing of NBA, it's like, here's the morning projections and we're not going to change anything. Yeah, obviously, probably you don't use them. The team behind making the minutes, you look at the minutes and you go, well, this looks ridiculously off, just by common sense. Okay, they're probably not very good, but that really doesn't even exist. I've looked at, I would guess any possible, unless there's some weird small place, small site, something I know nothing about. But no matter what, all the projections that you could get are good enough. So the key point is to get some way of turning player names into numbers. I would suggest RotoGrinders, right? You're here, right? We're on the RotoGrinders YouTube channel, right? We're on RotoGrinders.com. Of course, I'm going to suggest RotoGrinders. And it also is the main projection set that I use. So I'm like, I'm not saying like, oh, well, I use this, but you should buy RotoGrinders. It's like, dude, my main projection set in NBA is RotoGrinders projections. It's Andy Means behind the scenes, and which rhymes, by the way. Andy Means behind the scenes. And Noto and Bob and Alan and SBK, they're coming up with all the minutes and usage and everything like that. I trust them. Let them put that in. Let Jamino's model go through it. Let the hamster wheels go around for the ownership, and there you go. I may make some manual adjustments on ownership because I think I know human beings better than algorithms. But outside of that, I have no problem using these numbers. And if I aggregate, the numbers aren't going to change all that much anyway. They may smooth out some outlier situations that I can't judge for myself. So as like a backup of like, okay, I'll aggregate like 3-4 different projection sources and smooth that out just in case. But you don't need to. You don't need to do that. How do you feel about hand building lineups? Well, so you can do whatever you want. I don't understand. There's no difference between hand building lineups and not. How you put in the lineup doesn't matter, right? You have to get away from this notion that using a tool and using you're building a lineup based on a projection and an ownership. So that all you're doing is arranging numbers. I hand build all the time. In fact, I mostly hand build. And you say like, but you use like, yeah, I will physically go on my phone and I will type in the names into DraftKings. That's technically what hand building is. But all I'm doing is copying a lineup that I've come up with in the lineup HQ. Right? I'm entering it in. I'm hand entering it. Right? I have not just uploaded via CSV. I've just, I've run a lineup, right? I just go dink, dink, right? Okay, here we go. There, that's the line. And I'm gonna hand put this in. I'm gonna hand put this in. For GPPs, it's the same thing. It's like it's all about lineups and not players. So what is hand building a lineup? Like when people ask me, it's like, oh, you play 3 lineups and today. Like how did you build your 3 lineups? It's like, because I looked through 300 lineups and I chose the 3 that I wanted to play. I looked at 300 plus EV lineups. I said, okay, this one looks good. That one looks good. This one looks good. Then how did you enter them? Well, I hand enter. I went into my phone and I put those 3 lineups in, right? So a lot of times I'm entering the 3 lineups in a lot of other contests as well. So it's like each of those lineups are in 20 different contests. So it's a little tough to do it via CSV, right? You have to match up the contest names or whatever. So I entered by hand. I mean, you can do it by CSV. I just find it quicker to go by hand. So is that hand building? Is that hand building a lineup? No. To me, when you say hand building lineup, it's like you're going to build a lineup without looking at projections or ownership, and just like off the top of your head, kind of like put something together. Well, I mean, you can if you're still building based on projection and ownership, and you just kind of guesstimating those numbers as you put them in. But outside of that, there's no difference. It's like the difference between hand building and using lineup HQ is the difference between using a Phillips head screwdriver that you turn and a power screwdriver, right? One is like, okay, well, I could move my wrist like this, right? I could tighten this, whatever the hell, this screw in this bookcase or something. I also have this power. I got the one that has a battery that I could just press a button and it screws it in for me. I get to the same place. One's quicker, right? One's more accurate, right? You're more likely to, well, do I have to use my hand? It's like, no, this, I just go and done. There you go. The goal is to play good lineups. So how you get there doesn't matter. Shouldn't matter. The computer isn't picking anything, right? That typically when you get into these conversations, it's with hand builders and optimizer bros, and it's like all it is a tool. Don't you want to do something quick? Don't you want to do something more accurately and more efficiently? Well, if you don't have to, but I mean that's the only difference. Well, I'm gonna play Trey Young today, and then I'm gonna put in Brandon Ingram, and then I'm gonna put, dude, are you gonna be as accurate as me when it's like I'm gonna play a lineup at 287 point projection at X amount of ownership? Can you hand build that lineup for me? Imagine if I told you that. Imagine if I told you I'm not gonna tell you I don't want you to look at the projections today. And I want you to build a lineup that has a 274 point projection, median wise, and a 213% ownership. Go do it. Go hand build that for me. Go. I'll wait. Without looking at any of these numbers, I guarantee you're not going to come anywhere close to that, right? You're gonna be okay. I think you play this guy. I think you play that, right? You may come close-ish, and you probably ain't gonna get that lineup exactly. Probably not. So why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you just use a tool in order to do it? Why isn't that quicker? Right? And if you're not used to using this type of tool like Lineup HQ, that's why you tune into this show. That's why you submit your questions. If you have any questions about using Lineup HQ or any optimizer tool, right? In general, I mean, most of them have similar functionalities that I could show you on Lineup HQ because that's the one that I use. Submit them. Questions at theoryofdfs.com. Just send them to me. I will answer them on this show. I will, even if you don't tune in tomorrow or next week or whenever I get to your question, I will always respond back via email when I do. So if I cover your question on today's show, I will literally respond after the show, cover the question, so you know what show to go to. And that's why all these shows are now labeled. So you can go back and see what questions were asked, what topics were covered. So like this show title is going to be Aggregating Projections. So if you 3 months from now, it's like, now I'm aggregating 7 sets of projections. I forgot how to do this in Lineup HQ. Or how to rename things, columns in an Excel. Okay. Well, now I have a video to go back to. So hit that thumbs up button. Hit the thummy thumbs. Give me the thummy thumbs. Hit the like button. Smash the like button. Smash everything. Smash everything you want. Smash the aggregating button. Smash the Lineup HQ button. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. We got a big NBA slate tonight. Grinders live later today, followed by crunch time. We got what? How many weeks? 3 weeks? 3 weeks till baseball? 3 weeks in a day? Is opening day the 31st or whatever? I think it's the 31st. I think maybe the night before they do like an ESPN game or whatever. But I'll be on Grinders Live for you'll see me on Grinders Live for baseball at least, right? Not NBA. So we'll have some fun, and We'll go through a primer. Like we're going to do the MLB primer probably a week before the start of the baseball season. So probably what, the 13th and now 20th, Monday the 20th. We'll have that entire week and a half be an MLB primer. So submit your MLB questions. You got anything about MLB? Get them in. I mean, well, obviously we have plenty of time, right? Because once MLB starts, by the time we get to June, I'll be on this show going, when is MLB going to be over? Right? That's how it always is. We always like, I can't wait for this. And then like 6 weeks into the new sport, it's like, I can't wait for NFL to be back. Then 10 weeks into NFL, it's like, can't wait for something else. Can't wait for golf to be back, right? Or something, right? Typically within 3 days of NBA, you're like, I can't wait for MLB to be back. NBA is a different story. NBA is like, oh, glad to see NBA is here. And then 3 days later, it's like, NBA, get out of here. Okay, so hit that thumbs up button on your way out the door. Obviously, you can get more of this excellent training and education in a more structured way. Theoryofdfs.com. Buy the 2 courses, the Excel tools. You could find them there. Theoryofdfs.com. And I'll be back. I'll be back tomorrow. Right? We'll talk about projection accuracy tomorrow. Defect. That's the question. The question. Maybe I'll get someone on. Maybe even debate this a little bit. There are different ways of measuring the accuracy of projection sources. But we could talk about that tomorrow because I'm here answering your DFS strategy questions like I always do, Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern, on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.